Peru's National Meteorology and Hydrology Service reported heavy rains in the northern and central regions due to the passage of Cyclone Yaku. France's upper house of parliament votes a bill to raise the retirement age in the face of strong opposition from labor unions. In Israel, protests against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's illegal reform coincide with the arrival of United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. On Wednesday, Peru's National Meteorology and Hydrology Service reported heavy rains in the northern and central regions due to the passage of Cyclone Yaku. According to the Meteorological Service, Cyclone Yaku is causing heavy rains in the regions of Tumbes, Piura, Lambayeque, La Libertad, Ancash, and Lima. Authorities have warned about the danger of flooding and landslides due to the unusual phenomenon. Despite this, the weather agency detailed that the rains follow the forecasts issued on Tuesday, as this low-pressure system of hourly rotation is associated with the warming of the sea surface temperature and the second band of the intertropical convergence zone. Experts forecast that in the coming days, rainfall may intensify in La Libertad, Lima, and Ancash, and this may influence the increase in the flow of several rivers in the area and the activation of streams. In late February, experts identified the formation of the meteorological event, the first of its kind in this area, and are continuing to monitor its path. And former de facto president of Bolivia, Yanín Áñez, will be prosecuted by the highest court of ordinary jurisdiction in the country without any kind of privileges for the 2019 massacres of Sencara and Sacaba, where 10 people were murdered. The decision was ruled by the Attorney General Juan Lanchipa, who explained that the process for the trial of it is known by the Supreme Court of Justice, but its proceedings will be referred to judges of the ordinary courts of La Paz and Cochabamba to move forward with the cases against Áñez. On the other hand, the Minister of Justice, Iván Lima, reported that Judge Israel Claros authorized a criminal investigation against the former senator for the crimes of genocide and murder. On Thursday, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock of El Salvador issued an animal health alert due to the avian flu present in neighboring countries, Honduras and Guatemala. So far, Panama, Guatemala, Honduras, and Costa Rica have confirmed the first cases of avian influenza, also known as bird flu, which is in spreading, can affect humans. On Wednesday, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock ruled out the presence of confirmed cases in Salvadoran territory, although it sounded the alarm in order to reinforce preventive measures and reiterate that the nation have not registered any case of this disease in the country. Salvadoran authorities increased security measures to prevent the arrival and spread of the disease due to the rise in regional cases. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro signed a law for women heads of households in criminal and penitentiary policy bill, which will benefit around 5,000 convicted women who are in their household's main provider and in marginalized conditions. The Colombian head of state announced on his Twitter account that under the new law, more than 5,000 imprisoned mothers who are heads of households will be freed to care for their children for 5 days a week. From the Department of Chocó, President Petro said the main purpose of the law is to prevent thousands of children from growing up without affection and to show that things can be done differently. He also pointed out the measure responded to a historical demand regarding the unconstitutional state of the penitentiary system. In Argentina, the federal court released on Thursday its reasons or causes for the verdict that sentenced Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner to 6 years in prison, along with her disqualification from holding public office. The verdict derives from the trial in which the vice president was accused of allegedly benefiting local businessperson Lázaro Báez, with public works awarded in the province of Santa Cruz. According to the released documents, the federal court concluded that there was collusion and protection of state agencies to guarantee Báez activities. However, the court ruled out the figure of illicit association presented by the prosecution and also emphasized the controversial assessment of the works that were part of the accusation. For her part, Fernández de Kirchner stated in December the sentencing against her is part of a judicial mafia which seeks to undermine popular movements and governments, while social organizations denounce this move as a proscription attempt against the former president. As from this moment on, both parties may appeal the ruling. In this context, social and political movements held a vigil on Wednesday in support of the Argentine vice president in front of the federal courthouse in the capital, Buenos Aires. The vigil coincided with International Women's Day marches in the city and lasted until early morning. Hundreds showed their support to Cristina Fernández de Kirchner in the face of the federal court ruling, which includes her perpetual disqualification from holding public office once the sentencing is confirmed. And we move on to other topics. Tens of thousands of working-class women from Brazil's social movements and labor unions took to the streets on International Women's Day. In Recife, our correspondent Brian Muir has more.
After the illegal impeachment of Dilma Rousseff in 2016, the Brazilian government eliminated the Women's Rights Ministry and butchered funding to housing, food security, and domestic violence prevention. Now with the left back in power and these issues back on the agenda, thousands of women came to the streets of Brazil's towns and cities on International Women's Day to celebrate.
We've managed to return to democracy and open a path to start talking about women's rights again. We can start talking about problems for women and their families again, like jobs, social support, and the fight for democracy, but most of all, the struggle for happiness. We've started hoping and dreaming again. And through lots of organizing and mobilization, we are going to build the arrival of spring. Viva Women! Viva March the 8th! We'll continue in the struggle as sisters.
In Recife, women from social movements, labor unions, and student organizations marched through downtown to the governor's palace to put pressure on the conservative state government to create policies that will complement the new federal programs for women's rights, education, and economic development.
We've delivered a manifesto to Governor Raquel Lira with some important demands for women, urgent solutions to the housing shortage and to the health and education crisis, which are disproportionately affecting women in these post-pandemic times.
Brian Muir, TeleSUR, Recife.
And now let's take a short break. But first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us.
Deep gazes filled with struggles and stories. Struggles that transcend generation. Know the deepest realities through its protagonists on TeleSUR documentaries. Sunday. Only on TeleSUR. We share your feelings, exalt your accomplishments, and show your reality. Our approach is global and keeps us in tune with the peoples. Caribbean countries also get our signal. With enthusiasm, we will continue to broadcast for them. Because we are TeleSUR, the news broadcaster from South America and the Caribbean.
A series where the hope of the Bolivian people who place their trust in participatory democracy for the strengthening of their constitution is observed.
Primero eres poder y luego eres gobierno. Se es gobierno en la superestructura jurídico-política del Estado, pero al mismo tiempo se es poder en la sociedad. Entonces, como ya el MAS era cada vez más gobierno y cada vez menos poder, se va produciendo una suerte de separación entre la sociedad política y la sociedad civil, donde el Estado se va convirtiendo en el único actor del proceso y los movimientos sociales van convirtiéndose en espectadores.
Red November, the elections. Saturday, only on TeleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. 3 citizens were killed and 7 others injured in an explosion on a landmine in Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria. Deir ez-Zor mayor said the explosion was caused by Daesh terrorist groups in the Al-Hamidiyya neighborhood. In this sense, the director of Deir ez-Zor Health Department, Bashar al-Suwabi, confirmed that a building collapsed after the blast, causing serious injuries to 2 of the 7 injured and also property damage. Earlier on March the 2nd, 5 citizens were also killed, and more than 40 others were injured in a landmine blast left behind by the ISIS terrorist forces in the Kibajib area on Deir ez-Zor's southwestern countryside. In Israel, continued protests against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's legal reform coincide with the arrival of United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. A planned mass rally in Tel Aviv by Israeli protesters opposed to the government's controversial reform plans and forced change of venue for Austin talks, putting the international spotlight on Israel's domestic divisions. Demonstrators used their vehicles to block access roads to Ben Gurion Airport ahead of Austin's arrival. 9 straight weeks of protests have been held by opponents of the reform plans, which could give politicians greater power over the courts. The mounting violence in the occupied West Bank has coincided with the tenure of Netanyahu's new coalition government, which took office in December and is regarded as the most right-wing in Israeli history. A special Israeli forces unit on Thursday killed 3 Palestinians after opening fire at their vehicle at the entrance of the town of Jabba, south of the occupied West Bank city of Jenin. The Palestinian Health Ministry identified the men as Sufyan Fakuri, 26, Nayef Malaisha, 25, and Ahmed Fasha, 22, and said they were shot by Israeli fire during the military operation. It also said a 4th man was hospitalized with a bullet wound to the head in stable condition. With the killing of the 3 youths, the number of Palestinians killed by Israeli forces since the beginning of 2023 has risen to 77, including 13 children and 1 woman. The Taliban governor of Afghanistan's northern Balkh province, Mohammad Dawood Muzammil, was killed in a blast at his office on Thursday. Balkh province spokesperson Asif Waziri confirmed the explosion occurred around 9 a.m. local time inside the second floor of the governor's office. He also said that 2 people died in the explosion, including Muzammil. Waziri further stated the cause of the latest blast was unclear, and so far there was no immediate claim of responsibility. Meanwhile, Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said on Twitter that the governor had been martyred in an explosion by the enemies of Islam. Mohammad Dawood Muzammil is the most senior officials to be killed since the Taliban returned to power in 2021. And the United States candidate to head the World Bank, Ajay Banga, on Wednesday called for a revamp of the development model to better meet the challenge of climate change. Banga, who is on trip to Kenya, stated that the world cannot continue to pursue the prior model of emission-heavy growth system and valid for adaptation. The 63-year-old Indian American was last month nominated by the U.S. President Joe Biden to head the global lender after its current chief, David Malpass, announced plans to step down early. The nomination comes amid a push for development lenders to revamp and address global problems like environmental issues more effectively. Banga is currently serving as vice chairman of equity firm General Atlantic and was previously chief executive at MasterCard. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.